cool sea breeze blows in off the shore, creating a typically beautiful morning throughout the streets of San Francisco. Just a few minutes before 6 a.m. as the morning's first cable car slowly makes its way down Van Ness Avenue. The iconic San Francisco trolley carries a dozen or so sleepy-eyed commuters through an industrial warehouse area which services the shipping ports just north of the Embarcadero. Deep inside the humongous Hanslet warehouse, a fire spreads quickly. Its flames remain hidden from view to the outside world. Passing the enormous 5-story structure, no one on the trolley seems to notice the faint wisps of white smoke emanating quietly from one of the building's second-floor windows. Then, as commonly seen in movies and TV, approaching the top of a hill, the trolley appears to sink beneath the horizon against the backdrop of the city's downtown terrain. Suddenly, two panicked 20-something guys burst out of the Hanslet building, stop, momentarily look around the empty street. Wearing a light blue tank top, the shorter of the two men points at the distance, and both men frantically sprint across the street to where there's a fire alarm mounted to a telephone pole. The taller man picks up a rock, breaks the glass, and pulls the lever, automatically notifying Engine Company 7 of the San Francisco Fire Department. Though antiquated by today's standards, the 1974 technology nevertheless moves with impressive speed, jingling and flashing a chorus of mechanical chimes and lights, prompting professionally trained crews to their stations. In less than a minute, garage bay doors open and gargantuan fire engines launch like jet fighters, flying east down California Street, heading for the warehouse district just north of the Embarcadero. Meanwhile, 5 miles east, the Hanslet warehouse's exterior fire alarm safely wards off passing pedestrians. But its volume is not loud enough to reach nearby Carmen's Restaurant. Located 2 blocks south of the Hanslet warehouse, Carmen's Restaurant's front door is on the opposite side of the building, thus its occupants are totally unaware of the growing fire just 2 blocks away. Inside the tiny coffee shop, an apron around his waist and a white towel draped over his shoulder, a tall guy with a ponytail flips pancakes on a large, professional-grade kitchen grill. 24-year-old fry cook Oliver Perry glances briefly at the register, the front door, and the young couple sitting at one of the 2 tables near the window. Turning back to the grill, he quickly flips 4 golden brown pancakes, one by one, onto a white plate. Then, with the same spatula, he adds a side of hash browns and carries it to the far end of the counter where there's a businessman reading his newspaper.
Here you go.
The front door opens and in walks a cheerful-looking, 60-something white guy with a bulbous nose and a friendly smile. Even though it's not raining, when he removes his dark blue trench coat, he gives it a brisk shake before hanging it on a wooden coat rack near the door. He and Oliver Perry exchange a friendly nod.
Morning.
Good morning.
The new guest is wearing a simple charcoal pinstripe business suit with a pale blue button-down work shirt and a wine-colored tie with tiny, soft yellow circles. He takes a counter seat nearest the front door, about 4 seats down from the businessman who's now eating pancakes. With friendly demeanor, taking a towel off his shoulder, Oliver Perry wipes the counter and puts down a glass of water.
What'll you have?
Chili and a lot of crackers.
For breakfast?
Yeah, gets the juices flowing.
Standing at the counter, the younger man laughs.
It's your stomach.
Where's Pop?
Gone fishing. Be back tomorrow.
Then you must be his son.
Oliver Perry looks around the room.
That's why I'm here.
Well, you tell him Mike Stone came by, will you?
Yeah.
I used to walk a beat out here.
Walk a beat. Perry realizes he's talking to a cop. Pretty cool for a blue hat. And by the looks of him, maybe, a detective.
This morning when I got up and felt that breeze coming off the water good and cold, I thought of Pop's chili, good and hot.
Perry comes back with a bowl of chili, which he puts before Mike Stone.
Yeah, this chili got me through a lot of cold mornings, I can tell you that.
The 2 men's friendly exchange is interrupted as the sirens come ominously close. Quickly, Mike Stone shoves money beneath the chili, stands up and grabs his trench coat off the rack. As he opens the door, an enormous red fire engine flies by at sonic speed, disappearing around the corner of the building. A second fire truck shrieks by, her sirens wailing like a banshee. When he spots a third truck coming in the distance, Stone runs around the corner and finally sees it. A huge cloud of black smoke against an otherwise clear blue sky. At its base, a 5-story warehouse spits orange flames out through its 3 blackened windows on the second floor. His cop's instincts kick in, and Mike Stone hotfoots at making a beeline to where the fire trucks are starting to assemble. A As the first truck comes to a stop a safe distance from the building, a few firemen pop off the truck in quick succession like popcorn. Through all the commotion, among a dozen or so firefighters, or red hats as they're known, Mike spots a familiar face. His longtime friend and fellow poker player, firefighter Harry Firpo, is trying to hold back a crowd of curious onlookers, unintentionally blocking firefighters from bringing in their much-needed equipment. Mike Stone asks Harry Firpo if he can help.
Harry, what do you need? You stand up through the crowd. All right, come on, everybody, stand back, please.
Harry Firpo runs over to Engine 7 and begins strapping on his gear. Meanwhile, back at the crowd, Detective Mike Stone holds his badge high overhead, projecting an air of authority.
All right, come on, everybody, stand back, please. Everybody, way back against the wall, come on.
His tone of voice urgent but civilized as he addresses the intrusive crowd.
Against the wall, come on.
Begrudgingly, disappointed onlookers finally begin to move back, and Mike Stone summons the firemen to bring in their equipment.
Officer, now bring your hoses right through here, come on.
Just then, a red sedan pulls up behind Detective Stone, stops, and cuts off its engine. Exiting the four-door vehicle, Fire Inspector Jack O'Moore greets Detective Mike Stone.
Hey, Blowhat, what are you doing here?
Hey, I was having breakfast. What about you? I thought you threw wrestling hoses, strictly investigating now.
That's right, I am.
And this is arson?
Maybe. Where's Harry? You seen him?
Mike Stone points at engine number 7.
No, he's over there.
Oh.
Investigator Jack O'Moore runs over to the fire truck where Harry Firpo is standing, as Detective Mike Stone stays behind to contend with the crowd of onlookers.
Come on, everybody, please, stand back.
Over near the truck, firemen Harry Firpo and Jack O'Moore cover the few details known so far.
Harry, when it start?
Second floor, as near as we can tell. But it's leaked up to the third and already burned through to the first.
Did you get the 3 alarms yet?
Yeah, I'll bet we get to 4 pretty soon.
Oh, that smoke.
White, then black. One of the men thought he smelled combustibles. Jacko, take over here. I'm going in. I'll let you know what I find inside. Handy talkie's on the rig.
Get it going.
Harry Firpo begins ascending the ladder for a closer view of the fire's flashpoint inside the building on the second floor. When Detective Stone spots 2 firemen assisting a third wounded man walking with a painful limp, Mike approaches,
Here, give it to me. I'll take him.
takes the injured man by his arm, distributes his weight, then helps him walk to a nearby waiting ambulance. Leaving the wounded fireman safely with the medics, Lieutenant Mike Stone walks back over to where Jack O'Moore is standing.
We're on the second floor now. Looks like it's about to cave.
Speaking into a walkie-talkie the size of a sports bottle, Fire Inspector O'Moore asks his comrade inside the building if he can locate specifically where the fire started.
Any hot spots, Harry?
3 of them. I can still smell the gasoline. It's a torch job, Jacko.
Okay. Get out of there, Harry.
I'm trying, believe me. One of our boys is hurt in here.
Even though Harry is deep within the building, Mike and Jack's gaze is locked on the second floor windows, spitting orange flames into the air.
Better go to 4 alarms.
Jack yells into his walkie-talkie.
Harry, get out of there.
Hey, look out! It's coming down!
Without warning, a patch of roof 10 feet square caves in.
Hold it! Hold back! It's caving!
The southeast corner of the building collapses into wreckage.
Harry!
Mike Stone lunges forward,
Harry!
but Jacko grabs his shoulder.
Hold it, Mike. Hold it.
But he's in there.
I know. It's too late.
Hold those lines. Open that roof. Get some people out of here. Second floor, over here. Division 2. Tell them we got 4 alive.
The smell of building fire, the ensuing mist that results from the half dozen or so fire hoses attacking the building with their precision-guided waterfalls. The Hanslet warehouse reduced to rubble, and in just over an hour, the San Francisco Fire Department pronounces the building fire 90% extinguished, with a few remnants of flames in remote corners of the wreckage. With the death of Harry Firpo, Detective Mike Stone is now officially assigned to this homicide case, which he carefully coordinates with the arson investigation run by Jack O'Moore. The fire inspector tells Stone his office is now investigating a contract arsonist who hit the Kingley Brothers store in Oakland, then 3 more fires here in Jacko's district in the past month. Yeah, Mike Stone's been around the block and he's familiar with the shakedown. Business slow? Customers not buying? Well, if your business insurance covers fire damage, then this firebug can have the money pouring in. Mike Stone asks O'Moore if he can stop by later this afternoon to compare notes, and the two men agree to meet 1 hour from now at the City of San Francisco's Fire Investigation Unit, or FIU. But first, Stone needs to bring in his partner, Inspector Steve Keller. A rookie with less than 2 years on the job, this streetwise cop has proven to be a valuable officer on the force and a loyal friend to Detective Mike Stone. Unfortunately, this was supposed to be his loyal friend's day off. Ha! Too bad, kid, that's what you get for being good. Meanwhile, on the other side of town, Chadwick's Menswear is on the 4th floor of a 6-story industrial building located on Union Street between Webster and Buchanan. Inside, the man in question, Inspector Steve Keller, is being fitted for his 3rd two-piece suit in as many years. In the corner near the door leading out to the hallway, a younger apprentice tailor raises the cover of a steam press, then begins using a brush on a pair of freshly pressed, pleated baggy slacks. A few feet to his left, half a dozen similar pairs of slacks hang in queue awaiting their turn. Across the room near the window looking down onto the street 4 stories below, Inspector Steve Keller stands 5'9", 180 pounds. The dark brown sport coat he wears is held together with safety pins and brightly colored thread. The clean-shaven Irish-American detective with short brown hair faces a full-length mirror 5 feet in front of him. Hanging his arms loose and relaxed as instructed, Steve stands up straight, shoulders back with his chin up, as his 50-something tailor, Max Chadwick, takes a safety pin and, careful not to stab his customer, meticulously pins the jacket's right sleeve to the shoulder of Steve's coat. The tailor then reaches down and gives Steve's cuff a gentle tug toward the floor. Again, Chadwick carefully applies another safety pin, this time to the back of Steve's right shoulder. After glancing from one shoulder to another to ensure a level appearance, Chadwick gives Steve's cuff one last tug downward.
How's that?
Oh, is that even?
It's even.
The customer turns around, then looking back over his right shoulder, checks his appearance in the mirror.
How's the back?
Just then, the front door opens and in walks Steve's partner, Detective Mike Stone.
Get yourself out of that pincushion. We got work to do.
My 1 day off.
It was your day off. Pick up your things.
Careful with the right shoulder, Steve Keller removes the unfinished sport coat and gently hands it to his tailor.
Thanks, it's not sounding too good. I'll have to do it another time.
Chadwick cradles the blazer in his arms.
It's your hurry, not mine.
What do you got?
Fire.
What, arson?
Looks that way.
As the two men speak,
Somebody go up with it?
Steve puts on his regular sport coat.
2 firemen. One of them was Harry Firpo.
Firpo. Is that your old, your poker buddy?
Mm-hmm. My old poker buddy. He was a good man.
I'm sorry, Mike.
Whoever lit that blaze is going to be a lot sorrier, I can tell you that. Come on.
The two detectives drive back to Fire Investigation Unit. Fully staffed and dedicated to all things fire, Fire Investigation Unit is a bona fide detective agency by any reasonable definition of the term. With authority comparable to that of the DA, Fire Investigation has access to court-ordered surveillance from most jurisdictions, insurance records, building code infractions, search warrants, deposition transcripts, even video if available. As Mike Stone parks the car, he sets the parking brake, and the two exit the vehicle.
4 fires in 6 weeks, all warehouses and heavily insured. And the victims were all wide-eyed and innocent.
Just one guy with a match?
Yep, seems to be the theory.
Anybody else get killed?
No, those were the first.
Stone pushes open the door, and the two detectives enter the single-floor building. Inside, they notice there are no internal walls or partitions, just an open-area facility of communications and surveillance equipment and what look like science labs at the far end of the expansive interior. Teletypes, computer terminals, and databases store as much information as Jacko and his arson investigation staff can get their hands on. In the distance, a tall man wearing a black shirt and a badge waves his hand.
Hey, Mike.
Mike Stone introduces his partner.
Steve, Inspector Jacko Moore, head of the arson division.
Jacko, for sure.
Steve,
What do you got?
Jacko signals the two men to follow,
Oh, over here.
and he leads them through a maze of chest-high machines, faxes, teletypes, and various communications and storage devices. The fireman tells cops FIU is currently working with a cooperative local businessman who was recently telephoned by some enterprising arsonist promoting his illicit services. A sort of audible police lineup. With any luck, it's just possible proprietor Gil Porter might be able to match the voice from a series of recorded tapes they have on file of known arsonists.
There's a guy I may have talked to a man a couple of days ago. So we rounded up some tapes of known arsonists for him to listen to.
Well, how do you get those tapes?
The hard way. Some by court order, some from calls we get here, and some that you don't want to know about. Nothing illegal, but we got our stories too.
Without stopping, Jacko grabs the fax off the machine and slides it into a manila folder. The three colleagues approach a man seated at a table, a professional-looking African-American wearing a large set of headphones which is plugged into a desktop audio cassette player the size of a shoebox. The clean-shaven 30-something wears a light brown sport coat over a white button-down shirt, open collar, no necktie. Noticing the three men standing, he exchanges a friendly nod with Jacko and removes the headphones.
Hey, any luck?
But the seated man shrugs his shoulders regrettably.
I'm sorry. This machine might be able to tell one voice from another, but I sure can't.
Jacko nods understandably. Then he makes introductions.
Well, this is Gil Porter, Lieutenant Stone, Inspector Keller from Homicide.
Lieutenant?
Hi. I understand somebody offered you a fire.
That's right, and they made it sound awful good, too. See, I own a chain of clothing stores. Jeans, shirts, you know. And we did pretty big a couple of years ago. But then again, you know, times change. And now I got a warehouse full of no-pleat flares.
Detective Steve Keller nods.
See, everybody's wearing pleated baggies now.
Lead Detective Mike Stone looks at his own trousers.
Not everybody. So you got stuck with a lot of clothes you couldn't sell, huh? How did this guy know about it?
Well, it's no secret.
What did he say to you?
Well, he said he could fix me up with a real good one. Nobody would get hurt.
But you never saw him.
No.
Give you a name?
Yes, Jason.
That's all, just Jason?
That's it. One name, no number. Said he would call later if an answer.
Jacko writes something in his manila folder and says,
Mr. Porter agreed to a tap. So we got a court order, and the phone company ran a line in here so that we can monitor all his calls.
What made you change your mind?
Oh, wait just a minute, Lieutenant. I didn't change my mind. I never even considered the offer. See, I'm from Los Angeles. Watts. And during the riots back there, I saw all the fires I ever wanted to see.
Mr. Porter.
Mike Stone extends his right hand forward.
Thank you very much.
And with a sense of camaraderie, the two men shake hands.
Thank you.
Go ahead.
Just then, one of the console's blinking yellow lights catches Jacko's attention.
Got another one, huh?
Oh, over 90 a day. 33,000 a year. You know, some part of San Francisco's always burning. That's why we don't need any help from some firebug doing it for a profit. Mike, here's our list of the tenants of the building.
Jacko hands Stone the manila folder.
Insurance company's coverage and inventory. Now, you can check those, and I'll go over the ashes.
As Mike reviews businesses who lease storage space in the warehouse, Steve asks Jacko,
What makes you think the same man set all 4 fires?
Because I remember the last thing Harry said was that he smelled gasoline, and that there were 3 hot spots, the same pattern as all the others.
Wouldn't that be a pyro?
In my opinion, they all are. This one's a pro.
Still reading the file, Mike Stone says,
Harry said it started on the 2nd floor, right?
Right.
lightly touching the page with his index finger.
Wallach Son Art Supplies? I think I'll start there. You stick with Jacko.
10 minutes later, with no more to go on than the arsonist's first name, Jason, the 3 men walk out to the parking lot where they get into their respective vehicles and part company. Lead Detective Mike Stone heads over to Wallach Son Art Supply, while his junior partner Steve Keller hitches a ride with Jacko to the fire-gutted warehouse where the 2 men will sift clues. Meanwhile, in downtown San Francisco's Arts District, Wallach Son Art Supplies at the corner of Ocean Drive and Gantry Street. Brightly lit, its spacious retail showroom offers customers a varied assortment of canvases, paints, picture frames, stationery and paper products, easels, and other supplies useful to the creative spirit. Toward the back of the showroom, a spiral staircase corkscrews its way up to the 2nd floor, but potential foot traffic is politely vetoed by a small framed sign which specifies employees only. Upstairs, a short hallway leads to the desk of office receptionist Julie Hayes, currently catching up on her backlog of billing and correspondence. Minimal makeup, professional in appearance, Julie is a freckle-faced woman in her early 30s. Her brunette hair is worn in a low-maintenance ponytail. She wears a simple pastel yellow crew-neck sweater over a knee-length olive green skirt. Behind Julie's desk, a small restroom, a water fountain, and 3 administrative offices, all with their doors closed. In Suite A, Wallach Son Art Supply company owner Martin Wallach sits at his desk listening to hold music as he waits to speak with his insurance broker, Alvin Anderson. It's bad enough watching $10,000 worth of saleable merchandise go up in smoke. The situation only worsened when his son Paul was unable to locate their insurance policies. So, Martin called his insurance broker, explaining about this morning's fire and that he cannot currently locate his policies. No sweat. Actually friends since high school, Alvin immediately faxed Martin a 2-page summary of their fire coverage. But this 2-page fax is not good news for Martin Wallach. If they file a claim for $10,000 in lost merchandise, they must pay a $7,000 deductible, even if the fire was no fault of Wallach & Son. Disgusted, Martin puts the fact sheets in the inbox to his right. He knows the numbers. 67-year-old proprietor Martin Wallach has short gray hair parted down the side and a salt and pepper pencil-thin mustache which seems to amplify his current mood, be it good or bad. Seated behind his large, heavy oak wood desk with his back facing a window which looks out at Gantry Street, Martin Wallach, Marty to his friends, passes the time glancing around the room the way people do when they're on hold. In front of his desk, 2 plush armchairs colored forest green turned at a slight angle. About 10 feet past the armchairs and slightly to his left, his dark brown overcoat hangs in the back of the door, which opens out to Julie's desk and the spiral staircase. Extending right of the door frame, a black leather couch, above which is an oil painting of the Golden Gate Bridge, blanketed in the picturesque fog of the San Francisco Bay. Alvin gets back on the line and Martin picks up.
Look, Al, just tell me how much and stop the jokes, huh?
About 5 feet to his left in the corner of the room, a second inside door connects to the adjacent Suite B.
What? Why, we've never even made a claim.
The inside door opens, and a worried-looking businessman enters the room.
Look, Al, if the premium's going to go up that high, we'll just have to look around for another broker, that's all.
A younger man than Martin, he has short black hair and a neatly groomed mustache. The latter half of Wallach & Son, Paul Wallach, stands 5'7" on a stocky 200-pound frame. Standing on his father's left, the 41-year-old waits quietly, listening as Martin finishes the phone call.
Okay, you'll get back to me as soon as you can.
I thought he was a friend of yours from the old neighborhood.
Did you find those policies?
No, I guess they're at home. I better get.
Yes? Homicide.
Both men exchange a look of surprise. Then,
Well, send them right in, Julie.
a sharp-dressed 60-something man with a bulbous nose closes the door as he enters. He walks to the desk of a somewhat confused Martin Wallach, who stands to greet his visitor.
Mr. Wallach?
Uh-huh.
The homicide detective opens his shield wallet, displaying his badge and photo ID.
Lieutenant Stone.
Oh, how do you do, Lieutenant?
The 2 men shake hands across the desk.
Won't you sit down?
No, thank you. I'd rather stand if you don't mind. I've been riding a desk an awful lot lately.
My son, Paul.
Turning slightly to the side,
Hello.
Mike shakes hands with the company's co-owner, Paul Wallach.
Lieutenant, we heard about the firemen. We just couldn't believe someone losing their lives over a few rolls of canvas.
Well, it wasn't only canvas. They were trying to save other buildings, other lives.
Terrible thing.
Turning back to face Martin Wallach, Stone asks,
Were you storing anything besides canvas and art supplies in that warehouse? There was no paints, gasoline?
but Paul chimes in.
No, paints and thinners are kept here in a special vault. We don't stock gasoline. Why?
One of the firemen said he smelled gasoline just before he died.
On our floor?
That's where it started.
Now, wait a minute. Are you saying that we had something to do with setting the fire?
No, I'm not saying that at all. But I am saying that your records show that you carried an awful lot of insurance.
Oh, I don't believe this.
He storms around to the right side of the desk,
We lost money on that fire.
grabs the fax out of Martin's inbox, and practically shoves both sheets into the hands of Mike Stone.
Here, check our inventory. Sure, we had insurance, but not enough to even cover the loss.
With a cautionary look warning Paul, Mike whips out his glasses as the younger man takes a seat on the edge of the desk.
It's all right there, Lieutenant. Look it over.
Still standing across the desk from Martin Wallach, the lieutenant begins reading the fax pages, which confirm 2 exculpatory details.
We only stored saleable merchandise on that floor. We figure to lose between $7,000 and $10,000.
Well, do you know of anyone who would want to ruin your business?
No.
What about Rockwell?
Oh, come on, Paul, not Herb.
Who's this?
Well, he's our biggest competitor.
Behind where Mike Stone is standing,
Herb Rockwell.
a frustrated Paul Wallach collapses into the black leather sofa beneath the painting of the Golden Gate Bridge.
He's been after our business for years. He'd love to see us wiped out.
Oh, come on, Paul, I don't think Herb would do a thing like this.
Somebody did.
Removing his glasses, Mike turns around to face the younger man on the couch.
Who did you say? Herb Rockwell?
Paul Wallach nods confirmation. Yes, Herb Rockwell. Turning back to Martin, Stone reaches across the desk and hands him his faxes.
Well, thank you, Mr. Wallach.
Thank you.
I'll keep in touch.
Certainly, Lieutenant.
Respectfully, Paul rises from the couch to open the door for him. The two exchange a polite nod as the detective leaves the office.
Goodbye.
Bye.
As soon as Mike gets to the spiral staircase, the 41-year-old business executive quietly closes the door and returns to the left side of his father's desk.
He's actually accusing us of murder.
We don't have to worry about it. We certainly didn't do it, and I'm sure Herb had nothing to do with it. He may be a barracuda when it comes to business, but a thing like this is crazy. You have to be sick to do a thing like this. Real sick.
Yeah. Maybe you're right, Dad. I better get those policies.
Paul returns to his adjacent office through the inside door in the back corner. Standing over his desk, Paul picks up the phone and hits the intercom.
Julie, I'm going out.
Painters Association is on the line.
I'll get back.
And there's Mr. Jason on line, too. He called earlier.
Jason. Visually checking to ensure both doors are closed, Paul cautiously takes a seat
Okay, I'll take that one.
as Julie puts through the call.
Jason, what happened? You killed 2 men.
It's a high-risk business, Mr. Wallach. Accidents happen.
You gave me your word.
And I gave you till Friday to have your final payment. Same box number as before.
Look, I can't get it together. You'll have to wait for the insurance.
I told you going in, I don't wait. Unless you want another fire at that nice big house you live in.
Jason?
Back at the scene of the fire, 2 investigators are probing the second floor of the burned-out warehouse. Everything in sight charred, blackened wreckage, much of it still smoking. Staying 3 steps behind the veteran Red Hat, rookie detective Steve Keller watches and listens to Fire Inspector Jack O'Moore. Steve asks,
What are we looking for anyway?
Fingerprints?
Oh, come on, you're kidding.
Oh, takes a while to learn how, but you can read a fire by the ashes. Each one is different. Same as a fingerprint.
To avoid a twisted ankle, or worse, each man watches very carefully his every step as he walks through the uneven rubble and jagged chunks of concrete. Jacko lifts a hand, and both men stop in their tracks.
What do you got?
Something new. I mean, everything else around here fits the pattern of the other fires except this.
The fire inspector gestures at the floor,
Hey?
and Steve sees it. A black square about 3 feet wide.
Got a hole on the floor.
Or would that give it a better draft?
Could be. Could be. Well, making sure the gasoline poured into the first floor.
Who was downstairs?
Oh, just a bunch of crates full of sewing machines.
Were they insured?
Hey, not bad. You're thinking like a fireman now. Well, I already checked it out. Doesn't figure.
Why's that?
Well, because the company that owned them was bankrupt. The machines were just stored here by the court, pending auction.
Well, who gets the money?
Well, have to be creditors. Could be a dozen people. A couple of dozen, maybe.
The fireman's pager chimes, alerting Jacko that something important was just picked up on one of his wiretaps. 20 minutes later, when the 2 men drive to Carmen's restaurant to use the payphone, Jacko learns the arsonist known as Jason just phoned their cooperative businessman, Gil Porter. A recorded tape of the phone call will be available for pickup in about half an hour. Meanwhile, in the Fisherman's Wharf district, Lieutenant Mike Stone finds himself once again in a retail art supply shop. This time, Rockwell Paper Scissors, located on North Point Street between Polk and Larkin. Friends or not, fact is Herb Rockwell could stand to gain financially from Martin Wallach's warehouse fire. Similar to his competitor Martin Wallach, Herb Rockwell's office is also on the second floor, where the veteran detective is currently interviewing the owner-proprietor. Mike Stone asks Rockwell if he knows anything about the Wallach & Son warehouse fire. No, Herb Rockwell says he has not heard. Was anyone hurt? Stone says the fire was set intentionally, presumably to either hobble Wallach & Son or put him out of business permanently.
Well, it's a shame, that's all I can say. Man works hard, doesn't deserve setbacks like that.
Well, Wallach's fire won't hurt your business any, will it?
Okay, I guess not. Anything bad happens to him is good for me.
Rockwell picks up a box of files.
Look, Lieutenant, it's kind of hard to explain, but Marty and I have fought it out for years. And in a funny kind of way, we both won.
So competition forced you to be successful?
Yeah, something like that, I guess.
The two men walk downstairs to the retail shop.
How long have you known him?
Over 30 years. Tough fighter. Got a lot of shark in him. But deep down, he's a good man.
How about his son?
He's no Marty. Just a big shot. You see him yet?
I just met him.
Married a society girl. Big house in a fancy neighborhood.
Confused-looking customers trying to figure out one of those...
take care of this customer, will you please?
70-year-old Herb Rockwell sets the files down on a desk.
Nobody could hurt Marty the way Paul has.
How do you mean?
You got a son, Lieutenant?
No.
Well, if you did, you'd know. You see, a father likes to believe that what he's done with his life counts for something with his boy, whatever it is. With Marty and me, it's just this little business, maybe. But it's something, you know what I mean? Something you hope your son can appreciate. What it started with, how you got it here, and maybe keep it going for you. And for him, too, after you're gone. But Paul, all he cares about is a buck. How fast he can make it, how fast he can spend it. That hurts.
Then you're saying that the old man is straight?
Straight as they come.
He told me he could go in the hole because of the fire. He's got records to prove it.
So?
So his competition could stand to gain by his loss.
Meaning me?
Possible.
No, Lieutenant. I could never hate anything or anybody enough to use fire. You see, 20 years ago, my house burned to the ground. I lost my wife and my son.
As with any investigation, everyone's a suspect until they're ruled out. Unless he stumbles on evidence to the contrary, on his mental list of suspects, Mike Stone crosses out the name Herb Rockwell. He thanks the owner-proprietor for his time, and with a friendly, firm handshake, both men exchange business cards, and Stone heads back to Fire Investigation Unit. Working through his lunch hour, insurance broker Alvin Anderson has called in a favor of his company's financing wing, and it's good news for Wallach & Son. On the phone, Alvin explains if Martin does file a claim, he'll still pay the $7,000 deductible, but he can take up to 2 years to pay it off interest-free. Furthermore, because of Wallach & Son's years of claim-free loyalty, Alvin says so long as there are no more claims in the next 2 years, there will be no increase in premium.
Yeah, that's better, Al. Much better. Thank you. Incidentally, I'm sorry I blew my stack at you before. No, I'm not hurting. Yeah, sure, Friday's fine. Look, I got an idea. Why don't you come over to the house, have some dinner, You don't have to talk to Paul. You talk to me. Yeah. May God save us from our own children. All right, Al, I'll see you Friday. Yeah. What does he want? All right, send him in.
When the door opens, Martin cautiously eyeballs a short, smarmy man who enters wearing an expensive dark blue suit with a bright green tie.
Hello, Mr. Wallach.
Gambling bookie Nick Green offers a handshake, but Martin's not in a friendly mood.
Nick, I told you to stay away from here.
And Green drops his hand.
Hey, you've got business, I've got business.
Business? Somebody passed a law lately I haven't heard about saying that running book is legal?
No need to get nasty.
Without invitation, Green opens the second door and looks inside the adjacent office.
Where's Paul?
He's out.
He's gonna be a tough man to reach lately.
He's finished, Nick. Through. He's got no more business with you, so leave him alone.
He owes me.
You're lying.
looking closely at Martin's dark brown overcoat hanging on the back of the door.
I wish I was.
Nick Green feels the material, then turns around.
I've got expenses too, you know.
I gave him enough to pay you off.
I guess he saw it as a chance to get even with both of us. What can I tell you? He lost.
How much?
15 big ones. Now, where is he?
I don't have to tell you anything. Now you get out of here. Get out of here before I call the police.
I don't think you want to play it that way, Mr. Wallach.
I'm not playing it your way anymore, Nick. You're sucking the blood out of my veins. The well is dry.
I just want what's owed me.
Nick points a finger, warning Martin.
You better tell your son to call me.
He exits the office, closing the door behind him. Martin Wallach slowly sits down in his chair, his face white as a sheet, his hands shaking. He picks up the phone and dials his son at his expensive 2-story mansion. Currently 6 months pregnant, Paul's wife, Catherine, is home alone trying on her new maternity dress. She answers the phone in the kitchen, and after a brief exchange of pleasantries, she tells her father-in-law Paul's not home right now, but she'll have him call his dad as soon as he gets in. Just then, Catherine glances out the kitchen window to see Paul's tiny red Porsche 914 coupe pulling up in the driveway. She quickly tells Martin, then puts down the receiver and runs outside to greet her husband.
Hi, hon.
Hi, darling. Your father's on the phone. I told him you just drove up.
Okay. Hey, that's a nice dress.
Oh, do you like it?
Oh, I love it.
Carrying his briefcase in his left hand, Paul rests his right hand on the small of his wife's back, and the couple walk into their home.
I just came home to get the policies.
Paul walks directly to the kitchen, puts his briefcase down on the counter, and lifts the phone to his ear.
Yeah, Dad. Paul, Nick Green was just here.
Really? Maybe he owes me some money.
He says you owe him $15,000.
What? Well, he's got his book scrambled.
Paul, don't lie to me. The money I gave you to pay him off, what did you do with it?
Listening only to her husband's side of the phone call, Catherine senses something's not right.
Dad, I told you.
Yeah, you told me, and I believed you.
Oh, come on, it's just a mix-up. I'll straighten it out.
What's the use? The money's gone, and we've said it all before.
Paul, what's wrong?
Nothing, honey, just business. I better get those policies.
Briefcase in hand, Paul closes the door behind him, then goes downstairs to his basement office, where he puts his briefcase on the desk between the telephone and an empty coffee-stained mug. He walks over to the washing machine in the corner, on top of which an AM radio sits near a pile of folded clothes which smell like lavender. He takes the radio, turns it on, and carries it back over to the staircase, where he puts it down on the 5th step, then returns to his desk where he opens his briefcase and removes a large yellow business folder. Paul Wallach, not for the first time, rereads the contained foreclosure proceeding. He flips to the page stapled to the top left corner, its corresponding proof of purchase for the associated 22 items totaling $500, paid in full to the board members who lawfully waived the usual public auction, and whose notarized signatures appear above their printed names. Bill Forrester, Bob Rogers, Eric Blanchard, and Philip Morehouse. Paul closes the folder and puts it on top of a yellow metal file cabinet. Taking out his keys, he unlocks the cabinet and opens its second drawer down. Paul files the foreclosure folder toward the back. Then he removes another file, ostensibly the reason for his being here in the first place, the business insurance policy for Wallach Son Art Supply. He drops the policy in his briefcase, then returns to the file cabinet and removes a second folder, identified as Life Insurance Wallach Paul. He drops that policy in his briefcase as well. Sitting down at the desk, he removes a business card from a small slot in his briefcase, picks up the phone, and calls his old friend from college, Doug Pierce, now a loan officer at Crocker Bank. In short, Paul needs a loan. How much can he get, and how fast? Doug says no problem, come on in tomorrow, and he's sure they can work out something appropriate to his needs. No, Paul Wallach says. He needs it today. He explains they had a warehouse fire and the insurance is, well, it's complicated, and Paul would rather Doug kept this under his hat. An awkward pause. Then, okay, His friendly loan officer says, "Come on in today," and he'll accommodate Paul as best he can. Wallach thanks Doug Pierce and hangs up. He quickly puts the radio back on the washing machine, locks the file cabinet, grabs his briefcase, and goes back upstairs. On the other side of town, Mike Stone gets back to Fire Investigation Unit. As he enters the building, the lieutenant sees at the distant end of the expansive interior his partner Steve Keller and Jacko Moore standing at a desk, with a third man seated wearing the same black uniform as Jacko. The three men are all listening to a large audio tape deck as Stone approaches the group.
Hey, how'd you find out where I live?
Hey, what do you got?
Jason, he called Porter about an hour ago.
Can you match his voice?
Already tried, nothing.
We got a mailbox, though. Could you run it back to that point, Norman?
City employee Norman Lowry rewinds the surveillance tape of a phone call between contract arsonist Jason and local businessman Gil Porter, who's secretly working with the authorities.
You want to forget it? Okay. No, you're on. All right. You leave the first payment tomorrow at the Central Post Office. Cash, small bills in an envelope. Go to box number 3098. You got it? Box 3098. I'll need a key, won't I? I've already got it. It's taped to the bottom of your locker in the garage of your apartment building. Hey, how'd you find out where I live? I know where all my clients live. Now, I suggest you prepare an alibi for next Sunday. That's when you get well. Final payment is due the day after.
Check out the post office box?
Yeah. Yes, called Butech Incorporated. They got one other post office box. It's 3182, right?
Butech, you check that out, too?
Yeah, I called the state corporation's office. They say there's no Butech listed.
Figures will be a front for Jason.
This works well for investigators. With two P.O. boxes rented out to the same contract arsonist, investigators are twice as likely to catch this Jason.
Jacko, you call Porter and tell him to follow those directions. We'll put a stakeout on that post office box around the clock.
If all goes well, cops will apprehend Jason the Arsonist when he collects his payment at Central Post Office Box 3098. Jacko picks up the phone and calls Gil Porter as Mike and Steve head over to Central Post Office. Meanwhile, about 4 miles south, Paul Wallach drives his red Porsche coupe slowly down the ramp into Crocker Bank's underground parking garage, a dimly lit concrete and asphalt cave that smells like rubber tires and car exhaust. After setting his parking brake, Paul stays seated behind the wheel, inventorying his briefcase. Life insurance policy, birth certificate, last 3 electric bills, and of course he has his driver's license. And even though his house already has 2 mortgages on it, he brought along the deed just in case. He also checks to ensure he's removed from his briefcase anything from the foreclosure proceeding or Paul's $500 receipt of purchase. Could generate some unwanted questions. He exits the vehicle and heads upstairs to meet with his friend and loan officer Doug Pierce. In about 10 minutes, both men are sitting at Doug's desk as the banker quickly fills out the paperwork on his friend's behalf. From Paul's perspective, the how much is $25,000, preferably no questions asked. Unfortunately, on short notice, the best Doug can swing is $10,000. Not the figure Paul had hoped for, but what choice does he have? Yes, thank you, he'll take it. Doug says, wait right here, he'll run drop the paperwork. As the loan officer disappears behind the teller window, Paul Wallach sits at the man's desk and takes in the bank lobby. A huge, giant wall clock above the front door reads 4:48 p.m. Standing in line, a cute blonde in a white halter top over a red miniskirt and white leather ankle boots, zippers up the side with 2-inch heels. Across the lobby, near the stairs leading down to the garage, a big guy in a dark blue blazer is seated filling out a deposit slip. The guy looks mean, and Paul wonders if he and the blonde are together. Paul looks out the window. Afternoon sun, long shadows, rush hour traffic. If only that were Paul's biggest concern, rush hour traffic. Suddenly, Doug Pierce returns carrying a folder, a large envelope with the bank's logo, a yellow-colored form, and a ballpoint pen, also with the bank's logo.
Okay, Paul. But the next time you want this much in cold cash, give me a day's notice, okay? I really had to press.
Thanks, Doug. I appreciate it.
Sure. I just told him you were cum laude in our class, so don't cross me up.
Sensing his friend is pressed for time, Doug simply puts the yellow paperwork in front of him and hands him the pen.
Put your John Henry on the dotted line. I'm sorry about the fire. That's tough.
Yeah, well, just one of those things, I guess.
Okay, the note's for 6 months using the cash value of your life insurance policy as collateral. Any questions?
Yeah. Where's the money?
Smiling, Doug hands him a small envelope.
Right here.
Inside the envelope, Paul sees a stack of $100 bills. No need to count. He puts it in his jacket pocket, stands up.
Thanks again, Bear.
I'm glad I could help.
The two men shake hands,
Take care, huh?
and Paul departs, taking the carpeted stairway back down to the underground parking garage. He does some fast accounting. With $10,000, he can completely pay off the arsonist, Jason. Or he can make a down payment to both Jason and Nick Green. He owes Nick Green $15,000. He looks around the underground parking structure, a subterranean field of concrete pillars, sufficient in number to offer structural integrity in the event of an earthquake. But they intermittently block his view, thus creating a dimly lit maze for Paul to navigate. Rounding a corner marked M, he's relieved when he sees his small red Porsche at the far end of a row of parked cars, right where he left it.
Hiya, Paulie.
He turns right to see Nick Green standing with a newspaper beneath one of the few available lights.
Hello, Nick.
Been looking for you.
No trouble, Nick, please.
The bookie puts his paper down on the hood of a car, walks around and stands blocking Paul from the path to his red Porsche.
No trouble, Paulie. Just give us what's yours.
Paul glances behind him to see the tall man in the dark blue blazer. Actually, tall was an understatement. This guy's a giant. Must have followed him down from the bank lobby. Obviously, Nick's thug for hire. The giant says nothing, and Paul turns back to Nick Green.
You'll get it, Nick. That's a promise.
Nick Green smirks dismissively.
Hey, I already got your promise. Now what I want is my money.
I need time.
Nervous, Paul can sense the giant looming behind him.
That's one thing you're out of, Paul. Time.
Somehow, Paul gets a burst of adrenaline. He spins on his heel, and his right hook shoots like cannon fire at the big man's jaw. But the giant is too fast, easily dodging Paul's fist, then countering with 3 violent hammer blows of his own. The beaten Paul Wallach collapses on the equally unforgiving concrete. Bending down to reach into Paul's jacket, the giant pulls out the envelope with the cash and hands it to Nick Green.
Wow. Now that was dumb, Paulie.
Nick Green starts thumbing through the enclosed stack of $100 bills.
All this onion, you do a number on me anyway.
Paul lays on his back,
Nick,
barely able to move.
I can't give you that.
How much is here?
And there's that salty rust taste of blood in his mouth.
I need it, please.
I said how much?
10,000.
Nick Green discards the white envelope and counts the money anyway.
5. Gives you 5 short.
Nick.
Instinctively, Paul's hands grasp for his family's finances.
Nick, please.
But Nick Green will have none of it.
Nick.
Get this bum off me.
The giant gives Paul another merciless beatdown, and the two villains depart, leaving their broken victim barely conscious, lying near his car's front left tire. Laying on the ground next to his car's front left tire.
Short time later,
disarray.
the driver to sleep. $10,000 later, crawl into the car and lock the door before falling asleep.
$10,000 later.
$10,000 later.
Awake now, he turns his rear view mirror to check his face for a damage assessment. A huge welt on the left side of his jaw near the edge of his mouth, and a variety of smaller scrapes across his forehead. The bleeding seems to have stopped, but not before staining his previously white business shirt. You can feel at least 2 of his teeth are loose. As a husband who cares about his wife, Paul cannot let Catherine see him in such a mess. Thankful Nick Green and his goon didn't damage his car, Paul slowly drives out of the underground garage and makes his way to a bar he knows in Daly City near the airport. Entering the nicotine fog of Reed's Tavern, Paul gets a few concerned looks from patrons and the bartender as he goes into the men's room to clean up. Turning on the water faucet, Paul takes off his sport coat and hangs it on the paper towel dispenser. He then removes his blood-soaked shirt and begins rinsing it in the sink. Using generous amounts of hand soap and cold water, Paul continues scrubbing the material against itself until he can no longer see red. as he begins to wring his shirt dry as best he can. An inebriated white guy enters the room, goes into a stall, closes and latches the door. Paul looks in the mirror at his lumpy and badly bruised face. The swelling on his left jaw is especially pronounced. Fortunately, his nose is intact, he can see okay, and his breathing seems regular. Wincing, he puts his sport coat on over his bare chest, then carries his freshly washed business shirt out to the car, where he hangs it over the passenger seat to dry. Double-checking to make sure his car has not been sabotaged, he rolls down both windows a crack for ventilation, locks his doors, and goes back into Reed's Tavern. The 41-year-old businessman plants himself on a bar stool and spends the next few hours self-medicating to deal with his pain. At about 1 a.m., in an effort to sober up, Paul orders black coffee, preparing for his drive home. When he walks through the front door at 2:09 a.m., the house is dark and Catherine is fast asleep. Still in terrible pain, Paul finds a bottle of codeine from Catherine's root canal last year. He dry swallows one tablet, crawls into bed with his slumbering wife, and soon falls deeply asleep himself. The following morning at 6 a.m., Catherine Wallach awakens to find her husband Paul snoring peacefully next to her, his head buried in the pillow. Trying not to disturb Paul, his pregnant wife quietly rolls out of bed, puts on her pink robe and matching slippers, and heads downstairs to the kitchen. Meanwhile, at the Central Post Office, the early bird gets the worm. Inconspicuously posted at both exits, Detectives Mike Stone and Steve Keller each have a clear view of P.O. Box 3098, rented by a man they've never seen before, the contract arsonist known simply as Jason. Like many U.S. post offices, this building's floor is of smooth, polished concrete which seems to echo the sound of footsteps and indistinct conversations. Ceiling fans circulate the air. Hanging fluorescent lights are complemented by the enormous overhead windows. As the U.S. Post Office is just now opening, a line of about 3 or 4 people wait patiently for one of the 2 open service windows. As more people start coming in and out of the building, the 2 detectives spot a short, blond man, approximately 30 years of age, hovering indecisively near the other P.O. Box 3182. Dressed professional, jacket and tie, and he carries a briefcase in one hand and a tiny metal object in the other, presumably the mail key. Detective Mike Stone begins inconspicuously moving toward their target, his path smooth but direct, all the while watching for him to open that P.O. box. Off in the distance, Steve Keller follows his partner's lead, casually approaching from the other direction. As the suspect puts his key in the mailbox, Mike Stone calls out.
Police officer, stop!
The suspect flees, running away from Mike Stone, but towards Steve Keller. When he makes Steve Keller for a cop, he drops the briefcase and jumps through one of the open service windows as Keller jumps in after him and gives chase. Back in the lobby, Mike Stone picks up the briefcase and hurries to meet up with his partner. Jason runs fast, leading Steve Keller through an unfamiliar labyrinth of postage machines and mail carts before escaping through a back exit. Mike Stone gets out to the loading dock just in time to see his partner tackle the man to the ground, apply handcuffs, and help him to his feet.
All right, Jason, it's all over. Jason! I'm not Jason.
The man claims his name is Gerald Carpenter, which his driver's license confirms. Carpenter is 28 years of age, 5'8", 185 pounds, blonde and hazel. For the moment, Mike Stone lets his partner do the talking. Steve Keller reads Carpenter his Miranda. You have the right to remain silent and yada yada yada. When he finishes, Carpenter, with righteous indignation, says he does not need a lawyer as he's done nothing wrong. He's a tax-paying citizen, a respectable magazine publisher, and he demands to know just what this is all about. Coolly, Steve Keller explains, accessing the P.O. box of a known arsonist at the very least makes Carpenter a material witness. But when Mike Stone said stop and Carpenter rabbited, then the material witness just became an accomplice to predicate felony manslaughter. And all this on federal property, which is why cops now can go through his briefcase, which, come to find out, includes business insurance paperwork for Carpenter's company, Lear Publishing. At 8:10 a.m., cops walk a handcuffed Gerald Carpenter to their squad car and bring him in for questioning. across town at the home of Paul and Catherine Wallach. At about this same time, Paul is starting to wake up, groggy, but his entire body in pain, especially with a throbbing on the entire left side of his head, gradually increasing in intensity. When he checks the bathroom mirror, he nearly scares himself. A purplish, egg-sized swelling near the corner of his mouth. A smaller but equally painful bruise on the left side of his forehead just above his eyebrow. He takes a moment, pulls himself together. He walks downstairs to find his pregnant wife sitting at the kitchen table, sipping coffee, her newspaper folded open to the entertainment section. He takes a deep breath. Entering the kitchen, he walks directly to the coffee pot, keeping his back turned.
Morning, hon.
Good morning. What time did you get in last night?
Oh, a little after 1:30, I guess. I didn't want to wake the two of you up.
I tried to stay awake.
Well, I'm sorry.
Standing with his bruised side turned away from her.
I should have called. I just didn't check my watch, and when I saw the time, I figured you'd be in bed already.
Who were you with?
She said jealously.
I'm not jealous, Paul. I'm scared.
What?
I found your shirt. You tried to rinse it out. At first I thought it was lipstick, but it was blood. How did it get there?
Blood? Oh, yeah, I forgot about that. Sure, I just nicked myself yesterday.
Stop it, Paul. Just stop it.
Angry, she gets to her feet and approaches Paul from behind.
Honey.
And look at me.
Her hand on his shoulder, she turns him around to face her.
My God, Paul. What happened? Have you been gambling again?
But he just looks down and begins to leave.
Don't shut me out, Paul. Talk to me. Please, talk to me. I love you. Don't you know that by now? Whatever it is, it's me too. I love you.
I tried, huh? I really tried, but...
Oh, you can't do it alone. You can beat it. You can control it, but you have to let somebody help you.
That's just great, isn't it? 41 years old, about to be a father, and I have to have that kind of help.
Who did this to you? Somebody you owe money to?
Yeah.
Then call the police.
I can't.
Paul.
I can't!
Then nothing's ever going to change.
Everything's changed. You really want to hear it all?
She sits down on the couch next to him.
Go ahead.
I was in heavy. Dad gave me the money to cover it. And I bet it. I thought I could pay back what I owed and give Dad back what he'd given me.
And you lost that too.
Yeah. I didn't know what I was going to do. I was going crazy. They were pressing me for the money, and I couldn't go back to Dad. And then this guy called. He made it sound so easy.
Made what sound easy?
The fire.
Oh, no.
Well, he promised me no one would get hurt. He wanted $10,000 up front, and another 10 when he finished. So I sold the last of my stocks for the first 10, and borrowed on my life insurance for the rest of it. I was going to pay him, and then Nick Green cornered me and took it all.
2 people died.
I know, it's a nightmare. But it isn't over yet. I can't go to the police or I'll stand trial for murder. And if I don't come up with the rest of the money by Friday...
What?
He's an arsonist, Katie. He knows where we live.
With Gerald Carpenter in their custody, Detective Stone and Keller drive back to the police station. In the back seat, Steve Keller goes through the handcuffed man's wallet, counting $32 in cash, 2 credit cards, his driver's license, and Carpenter's business card, which reads Gerald D. Carpenter, President, Lear Publishing, LLC. Arriving back at the station, lead detective Mike Stone takes Carpenter into interview room 14 to find out just how Carpenter is connected to Jason the Arsonist. Meanwhile, Steve Keller runs his name and driver's license, checks for warrants, affiliations, background, etc. Gerald Carpenter has no prior arrests or convictions. Next, Keller calls the state corporation's office and asks for a records check, and this is where it gets interesting. Lear Publishing, LLC, doing business as Lust Incorporated, adult entertainment magazine.
Lust Incorporated.
Keller laughs. A sports fan.
Yeah, I got it. Okay, thanks a lot.
Hanging up the phone, Steve quickly walks into interview room 14, where he hears his partner say,
Then you're a customer of Jason's.
Look, I told you I'm a respectable citizen. I never heard of any Jason. Man's a magazine publisher, just like he says, president. Lust Incorporated. Hardcore pornography.
Well, it's legal. The Supreme Court said you can print whatever you want as long as the public's buying.
No, Mr. Carpenter, that's not exactly what the Supreme Court said. Now, according to the latest decision, the community has the right to decide what can be sold. And if the community cracks down, like this town's doing, then it must be rough times for the porno biz.
Is that right, Mr. Carpenter?
I don't have to tell you anything.
That's right, you don't. But you do have a warehouse, don't you? And it's filled with a lot of dirty books you can't unload, and you thought maybe you'd start a fire.
I want to talk to my lawyer.
Sure, go right ahead. He'll tell you the same thing I will. If you just happen to have a fire after going to that arsonist money drop, you're going to serve time. A lot of it.
Listen, what if I cooperate? Does that go on the record?
Everything goes on the record. When's the fire?
Today. I was going to drop the money and be on a plane before it happened.
What time?
Well, there's still time to stop it.
What time?
12 o'clock.
Where?
Central Basin, warehouse number 7.
With not a moment to lose, Mike Stone opens the door and summons uniformed Sergeant Harvey Mancinelli,
Take care of me.
who escorts Gerald Carpenter downstairs for processing. As detectives both don their bulletproof vests and shoulder holsters, Steve Keller checks his watch.
Okay, we got about an hour. I'm going home with Jacko.
Tell him to stand by, not to use the bell. If Jason hears him coming, he'll just walk away and we'll really lose him.
Right.
Steve Keller calls Fire Inspector Jack O'Moore to advise of an impending arson in the warehouse district, specifically Central Basin, warehouse number 7. Unbeknownst to Mike and Steve and Jacko, the arsonist Jason is already inside warehouse 7, preparing for his destructive task. 4 aisles of magazines span the width of the second floor, shrink-wrapped bundles of 50 each, stacked neatly in columns 7 feet high. Occupationally, arson is an extremely physical job which requires heavy lifting. Specifically, Jason's 5-gallon gas tank requires both hands as the arsonist walks down each aisle, liberally dousing gasoline all over the magazines. At this very moment, in their unmarked squad car, detectives follow Jacko's red sedan as they head for the warehouse district's Central Basin. Behind Mike and Steve, 2 large, fully equipped fire engines and 1 support truck follow in tow, code 1. No audible sirens and no flashing lights. Don't want to tip off this paid arsonist. Authorities arrive at 11:51 a.m., 9 minutes before the scheduled flash time of 12 noon. The 5 vehicles quietly enter the expansive gravel parking lot setting up on the north side of Warehouse 7. To cops' surprise, Warehouse 7 is an enormous, sprawling complex in the shape of a bicycle wheel with 5 smaller spokes jutting out away from the center, which is 3 stories tall. Parking his red sedan near the street, Jacko keeps the engine running, awaiting intel from Detectives Stone and Keller, who park their car near the warehouse's north side. Police detectives exit their unmarked squad car and visually scan the exterior and immediate surroundings of the gigantic structure. Looking south, they see a distant personnel doors at the far end, near a fence blocking access to the railroad tracks just south of the lot. Jason nowhere to be seen, presumably still inside the warehouse. Just then, Steve spots black smoke emanating from the second floor window.
Too late.
I'll get Jacko's boy.
Far end.
Mike Stone hurries to where Jacko's red sedan is idling, as his partner Steve Keller draws his weapon and runs to the south door, entering the building to see fire raging in all directions, its ominous heavy black smoke hanging low. In terms of merchandise, the warehouse is nearly filled to capacity, with cargo crates and pallets arranged into aisles leading off in different directions in this smoke-filled warehouse. Overhead signs might offer guidance, but cannot be seen through the dense smoke. At face level, some elements Steve can read include magazines, books, and also cardboard boxes labeled as lawnmowers, dishwashers, furniture, and other household appliances. Cautiously, the 26-year-old detective steers clear of flames as he searches among the towering stacks of magazines for the arsonist known as Jason. Large and jagged pieces of debris litter the floor, and Steve recalls Jacko's admonishments to watch his footing. About 50 feet in front of him, Steve sees a man duck behind the magazines.
Police, hold it!
But Jason disappears into the shadows. By now, they're far enough inside the warehouse that when Steve looks back, he can no longer see the south door through which he came in. Unfamiliar orientation and aisles of merchandise snaking off in unseen directions under heavy smoke. A myriad corners to hide behind, and Steve will check every one if necessary. Meanwhile, outside, Mike Stone coordinates with Jacko, directing fire crews with their equipment to the exact location where they first saw the black smoke, the second floor window above the south door. Deep inside the warehouse, Jason shoots at Steve, who takes cover behind the stack of magazines. The shot came from Keller's right, deeper inside the warehouse. It's possible Keller is blocking Jason's access to the south exit. The dense smoke makes seeing and breathing increasingly difficult. Steve peeks out, sees Jason, and returns fire. But Jason flees, running toward the other exit, and Steve follows him, careful to dodge debris on the cluttered floor. But suddenly, Jason is nowhere to be seen. Just outside the building, fire crews break out their equipment and hoses, and begin pumping water as they enter through the south door. Hiding one aisle over from Steve Keller, Jason the Arsonist braces his shoulder against the stack of magazines and shoves hard, causing an avalanche, suddenly trapping Steve Keller beneath a 300-pound mountain of magazines. But unplanned, a fiery magazine also lands on Jason, setting his jacket alight. Occupational hazard, the professional arsonist stops, drops, and rolls. He gets to his feet, quickly discards his jacket, then flees the building through the other exit as the personnel door closes behind him. Suddenly immobilized, Steve's sore body is twisted into a pretzel and hidden from view beneath a mountain of magazines, several of which are on fire. Mike Stone arrives but has no idea where his partner is.
Steve! Mike, over here! Steve!
A huge pile of clutter is moving, and Mike moves quickly to help his partner.
Get me out of here! Come on.
Finally, Stone rescues Keller by digging him out from under the magazines. But as Mike Stone helps his partner up,
I lost him!
the younger detective is angry at himself for letting a dangerous criminal escape on his watch.
I had him and I lost him!
Meanwhile, at the home of Paul Wallach, with his options crumbling in on him, the 41-year-old businessman finally takes his wife's advice and seeks the guidance and support from his father, Martin. But by this point, the company patriarch has had it up to here with his son's garbage, and Martin does not mince words telling him so.
Oh, you killed those two men. You killed them just as much as the man who set the fire. Then you try to blame the whole thing on Herb Rockwell.
Dad, please.
Catherine, I feel sorry for you, but I don't feel sorry for him. Not anymore.
Furious, Martin Wallach paces deliberately like a caged animal around his son's extravagant living room.
He didn't mean it.
Swore before God Almighty that he'd never place another bet, but you couldn't stop, could you? You're like some lousy wino, some no-good junkie.
Disgraced before his dad, Paul dares not take a seat. And even though she's 6 months pregnant, out of respect, Kathy, too, is more comfortable standing.
Could you? You lie to your own family, you steal from your own family to support your lousy habit. And for what? Tell me, for what?
Dad!
No, this I want to hear. I want to know what he thinks is so important it's worth destroying everything I've ever had. Worth destroying everything he could have had. Worth destroying the lives of two brave, decent men. Come on, you tell me.
I wish I could. If I knew, I guess none of this would have happened.
That is no excuse.
I'm not making an excuse. I'm asking you to help me. You just tell me what to do, I'll do it.
He can't go to the police.
This man, Jason. Where did you find him?
I didn't. He found me.
Through Nick?
Well, I don't know, maybe. The IOUs I've had out, I guess a lot of people know I'm in trouble.
I'll get it.
What do you know about this man?
Allowing the men their space,
Nothing really. I've never even seen him.
Kathy walks down the hall to answer the door.
Never even seen him. You need to...
A tall, menacing-looking stranger pushes his way into the living room and looks directly at Paul Wallach.
Wallach. Jason?
I need my money.
You said Friday. I can't wait.
Silently,
I don't have the money.
Martin and Catherine exchange a nervous look.
Well, when can you get it?
Not until the fire insurance pays off.
No good. I need it now.
Look, there's no way that I can...
Now you look. I can't stick around here. The job I just did was staked out. That means the guy I was working for talked. That means that the mail drop is staked out, too. I need what's owed to me, and I need it now.
Will you listen to me? This house has 2 mortgages on it. Everything I have was bought on credit. I couldn't raise another nickel anywhere.
Jason pulls from his shirt pocket a book of matches. He lights the entire matchbook.
What are you doing?
Tosses it at Catherine's feet. She jumps back, Paul rushes to her side and stomps out the flame. When Paul turns back to face the arsonist, suddenly now Jason is pointing a gun at the married couple.
You're crazy.
A voice of reason, Martin Wallach, tries to maintain calm.
Put that gun away. I'll get the money.
Still aiming his weapon at Paul and Kathy, Jason says,
You got 1 hour.
Having no choice but to leave his son and daughter-in-law at the gunpoint of this wicked arsonist. Wordlessly, the elder man walks out the door. Fortunately, Detective Steve Keller was not seriously injured in the warehouse fire. By this point, he and his partner, Mike Stone, are back in the relative safety of the station house. The lead detective sips his room-temperature coffee as Steve finishes a can of pineapple juice. Brainstorming their next move, Mike Stone recalls their cooperative businessman, Gil Porter.
Well, there's one thread we haven't pulled.
What's that?
Porter. That's right. He's still on tap for a job. Maybe we can still make a connection.
Just then, at a distance, they see fire investigator Jack O'More enter the station house.
Jacko! Come in. Sit down.
Thanks.
Removing his hat, Jacko walks into the room and takes a seat.
I want to tell you, I've loaded all the hospitals in case our friend goes in for brain treatment.
There's no way to go to hospital in this town.
Yeah, you're probably right. Hey, look, what do you guys know about bankruptcy?
Oh, nothing much. Why?
You talking about a bankrupt sewing machine outfit?
Yeah. You know, I was wondering about that hole that Jason cut in the floor. Well, we ran a lab check on the plank. Found some petroleum residue.
Probably to burn the first floor as well.
Now, wait a minute. Didn't you say that the insurance money went to the creditors?
It does. And that's what I've been thinking about. I mean, I think the creditors could get a lot more from a fire than a public auction.
Sure. That's right. A court settlement would only bring a fraction of the real value.
So you think one of those creditors could have hired Jason?
Ask me. I think it's worth checking.
Where do you get a list of the creditors?
Court.
Three investigators make a beeline for the San Francisco County Courthouse on McAllister Street. And 30 minutes later, they're standing in the basement repository of the Hall of Records, getting help from 63-year-old Admin Supervisor 3 and Certified Notary Public, Lanny Sims. Clean-shaven face with thoughtful brown eyes, which view the world through Coke-bottled glasses. Sims is dressed professionally, wearing a tweed jacket over a white dress shirt with a wine-colored tie. Standing 5'7" on a portly 230-pound frame, the career civil service veteran compares the tenant's active insurance certificates with any corresponding business bankruptcy cases filed in the last 3 years. Looking up just above head level at a bookshelf with several large, clearly labeled black 3-ring binders, Mr. Sims thoughtfully considers the various labels, then pulls one from the bookshelf. He opens the enormous ledger of signatures and dates and lays it open-faced on a table in the presence of his 3 visitors.
Yeah, here they are. Foster, Rogers, Blanchard, Morehouse. You can copy the addresses from here.
Mr. Sims, have any of those people received their insurance checks yet?
Consulting the huge ledger.
No. Company isn't going to issue any checks until the court hands down a decision.
Sims says,
But according to this, these creditors are not going to receive any money anyway.
Why not?
No. They had an offer to sell the sewing machines for 28 cents on the dollar. Looks like they decided to take it instead of bothering with an auction.
Who bought them?
Some pretty lucky guy, I'd say. He puts down a $500 deposit, but it makes him the legal owner.
Does that mean he gets the insurance money?
$45,000.
What's his name?
Wallach. Paul Wallach.
That's it. That ties it. Thanks a lot.
With enough evidence now to make an arrest in the arson of the Hanslet warehouse, Mike and Steve drive to the home of Paul Wallach as Jacko follows behind in his red four-door. At this very moment, inside Paul's home, Jason the Arsonist is holding the terrified couple at gunpoint, awaiting the return of Paul's father, Martin, with his son's ransom of $10,000. Without taking his gun off the couple, Jason glances out the window to see Martin's car pull into the driveway, then pull up behind the rear side of the house, not visible from the street.
Like your old man still cares about you.
You don't care about anybody, do you? It doesn't bother you to kill anybody. It's just business. Don't you have any feelings?
Just like yours, number one comes first. Or you're going to turn him in as a public service.
Under these dangerous circumstances, Martin Wallach does not knock when he enters through the back door of the two-story home. His face ashen, the 67-year-old hands Jason an envelope.
Here's your money.
His son, Paul, looks confused.
Where'd you get it?
I was saving it for my grandson, but my own son is still a child.
Martin turns back to Jason.
You'll find that's a little bit short. There's only $7,800 there, but there's the cancel passbook. It's all I had left in the world.
Okay, that's good enough. That closes our account except for one thing.
The arsonist points at Catherine.
I think they'll be watching the airport, so you're going to drive me.
Then grabs the keys out of Martin's hand.
Drive where?
Sacramento. Come on, let's go. No, I'm not going to let you wipe him out. Let's go. No!
Paul lunges at his intruder, but Jason pistol whips him unconscious to the floor, quickly reacquiring the gun's aim on Martin.
Hey, leave him alone.
He's hurt.
Harshly, Jason grabs Catherine by the arm and pulls her toward the back door.
He's lucky. Come on, you're going to drive me.
Worried for his daughter-in-law and his unborn grandson, Martin takes a step forward.
Are you crazy? She's in no condition to drive a car.
Jason keeps the gun fixed on Martin's center mass.
Hey, if you want to see your grandson again, don't do anything stupid. Come on. Catherine.
But the arsonist shoves Catherine out the back door, leaving Martin standing dumbfounded with no options. His son, Paul, regains consciousness and staggers to his feet.
Why'd you let him go? I couldn't stop him. Call the police!
Martin does indeed call the police, unaware cops are already en route to arrest his son for his part in the warehouse fire and the manslaughter of 2 firefighters. Meanwhile, Paul runs out the door but stops short when he sees the steel of Jason's gun pressed against his wife's left temple, forcing the expectant mother behind the steering wheel of Martin's car. In a split second, when he sees Paul, Jason raises his gun, takes aim, just as Paul charges him. But Catherine smacks Jason's outstretched arm, causing him to miss her husband. Paul grabs the gun and holds on for dear life as Jason struggles to retrieve it. Then Mike and Steve pull up out front and exit their vehicle. Just as out back, Jason regains control of his gun and shoots Paul in the stomach. And the businessman falls to the ground, bleeding fatally. Meanwhile, out at the front curb,
Came from the back.
Mike and Steve get back in their vehicle and pull up in the driveway, hoping to block any escape with their unmarked squad car. As Jason gets in the passenger seat, Catherine jumps from the car to tend to her dying husband.
Get in! Get in!
But kneeling over Paul, Catherine ignores the angry gunman, who quickly moves over to the driver's seat. The red sedan of the San Francisco Fire Department parks across the street, and the unarmed Jacko Moore radios the police department, providing updates on Mike and Steve's situation. In the driveway, cops jump out and hide from view behind bushes on either side of the squad car. Jason starts at the engine, then points his gun out the driver's side window, engaging cops in a deadly shootout. Gunning the engine, the arsonist peels out, driving across the grassy lawn, then speeding south on Juniper Street, fleeing the upscale suburban neighborhood at dangerous speeds. With perfect timing, Jacko appears, standing next to Mike, who points to the fallen Paul Wallach, tells Jacko he's been shot, then gets back in the passenger seat as Steve Keller drives. About 10 feet from the back door, kneeling next to Catherine Wallach, Jacko gives Paul a quick once-over, then asks the distraught wife,
Where's your phone?
Living room.
As Jacko runs inside the house, Martin Wallach runs out to be with Catherine and Paul, hoping to provide as much comfort as he can. The family patriarch puts an arm around Kathy and strokes his son's forehead.
It's all right, Kathy. He's gonna be all right.
Meanwhile, doing about 50 miles an hour in pursuit of their murderous fire starter, Steve Keller narrowly avoids a woman with a stroller as Mike radios dispatch.
Inspector Jake, going to headquarters. Request backup units.
Trying to lose cops, Jason makes a sudden hard right turn, fishtailing around the corner as Steve Keller stays on his tail. Both cars racing toward the edge of a ravine, where the road turns left running parallel to the shore, but for whatever reason, Jason does not. Out of control, doing 50 miles an hour, the car blows through a 4-foot-tall wooden fence, then plunges 80 feet to where it hits a rocky, uneven hill below, bounces and rolls 3 times, before exploding in flames on its 4th roll. As the giant car-shaped block of fire finally stops in place, Mike and Steve pull up as close as possible. But exiting the squad car, the two are knocked back by the wave of searing heat from the flames, making it impossible to safely rescue Jason. The cops would have preferred to take him alive, but ironically, in his effort to evade justice in the deaths of 2 firefighters, the contract arsonist has died in a fire. As cops watch the furious blaze continue, Mike Stone comments to his partner.
What's that they say about poetic justice? Not my kind of poetry.
Detectives break out the yellow crime scene tape and begin setting up a perimeter around the smoldering chassis of Martin Wallach's car, the charred body of Jason the Arsonist entombed within. Epilogue. Mike Stone returns to the station house to begin writing up the report, as Steve Keller stops by the hospital for follow-up with Paul Wallach. An hour later, Keller gets back to the police station to find Jacko sitting in front of Mike's desk, speaking with the lead detective, a large box near the fire inspector's feet. Mike Stone sees his young partner.
Stop by the hospital? Yeah, Wallach just got out of intensive. Family's with him right now.
Well, leave him. He's going to be there a long time.
Oh, sorry, I can't try for him.
Well, now what do we got here?
Oh, I believe that's from Gil Porter.
Yeah. Remember those pants that he couldn't get rid of? Take a look.
Steve opens the box to see 3 pairs of blue and white checkered, non-pleated slacks.
These are for you?
Yeah, they're for me. What's wrong? Huh? I think I look good in them. No pleats. Takes a certain kind of man to wear them, too, I'll tell you that.
Jacko stands up, nods to the 2 detectives.
Yeah, that is my boss. I better check in.
Okay.
And takes his leave.
Good luck. See you, Jacko. What did he say? 90 calls a day?
Yeah. Some part of San Francisco is always burning.
I don't know, Mike. I just don't know.
Have you had breakfast yet?
Just some juice.
Come on. Treats on me.
You're kidding.
No, I'm going to treat you to the best bowl of chili you ever had.
Chili for breakfast?
Oh, come on, you're going to love it.
Mike, wait.
You never tried it, have you?
For breakfast, no.
Well, then don't knock it. When I used to walk the beat down in the Tenderloin, I used to have it every morning.
Chili?
That's right. It's the healthiest thing.
We hope you've enjoyed this spoken word audio drama of The Streets of San Francisco, Inferno, Season 2, Episode 20. Original TV air date, 14 February 1974. Directed by Virgil W. Vogel. Written by James M. Miller. Film edited by Jerry Young. Original theme music composed by Patrick Williams. Music supervisor, John Elizalde. The Streets of San Francisco, Inferno, Season 2, Episode 20, featuring the voices of Karl Malden as Mike Stone, Michael Douglas as Steve Keller, John Larch as Jack O'Moore, Barry Sullivan as Marty Wallach, Glenn Corbett as Paul Wallach, Kaz Garris as Jason the Arsonist, Catherine Justice as Catherine Wallach, Richard Eli as Gerald Carpenter, Biff Elliott as Lanny Sims, Anthony Charnota as Nick Green, Kurt Conway as Herb Rockwell, David Moses as Gil Porter, Bill Zuckert as Harry Fearpo, and Robert Casper as Doug Pierce. This spoken word audio drama independently produced at Project Wasabi Studios, Hollywood, California 90028. featuring the following music: Beethoven's Ninth Symphony by Ludwig Beethoven, We've Only Just Begun by Paul Williams. Project Wasabi gratefully acknowledges additional music tracks provided by YouTube Creative Commons. Hold on a second. Contributing artists: John Dealey and the 41 Players. Lurking by Silent Partner. This spoken word audio drama first published to YouTube on 4 September 2017. All supplemental narration recorded with the iPhone 4 using the sound app Recorder HQ. Edited with Windows 10 using the sound editing software Acoustica iMix and Audacity. This audio drama's supplemental narration, editing, and sound effects produced by Brian Newberry. This concludes Project Wasabi's spoken word audio drama of The Streets of San Francisco, Inferno. For additional free audio dramas, visit us online at projectwasabi.com. Speaking to you from Hollywood, California, I'm Brian Newberry. Thank you for listening, and we'll talk to you soon.